So, hello and good morning this time. It's an unusual time for us back at the Improvement Season podcast. It is Steve's deload, and that's why we were able to record a little bit earlier, because Steve was just like getting through the day very efficiently. I can see that he's freezing as well because it's very cold outside, at least. Yeah. It was the coldest night this year for us as well. So I would assume it's the same for you, Steve. We both are sitting here with our kind of warm sweaters and all.
Yeah, I've got a jumper on under here. I've got slippers on. I've got a beanie on. This is like unprecedented for me to have this many clothes on.
Yeah.
I think partly because I haven't trained yet. I think I'd at least have at least one layer off if I'd trained. I don't know if you noticed this, Pascal, but like days I have off and I'm just like sat. I'm like so much colder if I haven't gone and done a workout.
100%. I was just saying that to Katie the other day. I'm feeling more tired and also colder in general.
Yeah. And actually, as you brought up, it's my deload. I don't know if this is just a sense of I forget what the feeling is at the start of the deload and like how I feel at the end of like a overreaching week in that week 5, typically my week 5 before I deload, but like no part of me really wants, well, I do want to, of course, because I know I need to in that final week where I need to do these hard sessions, but they are sessions I don't want to have to do. Like they are just uncomfortable. They are exhausting, mentally very challenging to go in there when you're super tired. And I find myself kind of delaying sessions and like, I'm like, no, I need to go. And this is partly why AM and PM sessions were always such a struggle, because that was like doubly. Like I'd go in and do the morning session. And I'm like, man, I really don't want to have to go do this again.
Yeah.
And then on this weekend, like Charlotte would tell you, she was like, Steve was just like completely mashed. I was just so tired. I was like, I'm just tired. I'm grumpy. And I'll be in bed like 9-10 hours and I'm still tired. Today's Wednesday and it's slowly getting better. And I think by tomorrow I'll be back like feeling raring to go. And by the weekend, I'll be like, yes, back into hard training. But yeah, I don't know if I just forget every month. I also find, and you know this about me, in the deload week, I think one, I have more time to think. And then 2, I don't know if there is some like hormonal stress response going on in terms of like just this influx of what's going on in your body because you are overreaching. And that caused quite a lot of things to change. I just get like, I don't know, more emotional, more self-doubt, more like, I don't know, thoughts and feelings about life. It's such a weird, deload weeks are always a bit weird for me.
Sounds like pregnancy time for you.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about kind of the hormone or kind of the mood swings or so, but it's more like the desire to want to do it again. Because I've heard from, of course, Katie as well, for obvious reasons, but also then from other people who went through a pregnancy. The time right after that, so many women were convinced that they don't ever want to go through it another time.
Yeah.
Just 1 year passes and then all of a sudden most actually get pregnant again and get their second kid or so. It must be kind of a biological phenomenon. Kind of, I don't know, because if it's so painful, no woman wants to do or go through it again. So there must be kind of a biological phenomenon or process in the background that then makes you want to do it again, even though that it was the probably most painful experience of your life.
And obviously training isn't quite as bad as having to shove a baby out. But it's,
I mean, males are always complaining anyway when it comes to pain a little bit more than women are. So, yeah.
True. But yeah, I don't know if you get that, like in that, where you're just like your motivation, and that's a symptom of like an overreaching symptom, is your motivation to train drops. And that does happen to me consistently.
Yeah.
And we're people who love training and we're going to go and do that anyway. And part of it, and especially coming out of the gym when you didn't want to do it and you hit the numbers that you wanted to hit, it's very rewarding. But yeah, no part of, like this weekend, I was just a complete wreck. Monday, I really didn't feel great. Like I'm just behind, slow, body's not functioning and as well as it should be. And then like slowly things start ticking up and I'm like, yeah, better and better. And that's how you'd expect it to go. It shouldn't sound like a surprise to me, but every time I go through it, I'm like, man, do I really, why am I so tired? I shouldn't be this tired. I'm sleeping well and a lot.
No, absolutely. And funny enough, because I have like a couple of athletes who are going through the same thing right now as well. And I think it's a good sign. That doesn't mean that something is wrong with you, that you don't really have the desire of training in general anymore. It's just at some point you will feel probably that way if you've pushed yourself hard enough. And that's, once again, I can only repeat myself, why I have such a hard time believing when people are making those bold claims that they are always training to failure. I have such a hard time believing that this is truly, from a physiological and also mental perspective, that you're truly going all out. I can't see that, honestly, unless they are truly special snowflakes, what they are always claiming to be, like they are somewhat superior in comparison to other people who aren't capable of going there. And I wouldn't rule out that some people truly are, because this is the case with everything in life. Yeah. We have Lionel Messi's out there. We have Usain Bolt's out there. Sorry for that. So, of course, some people will have a much, much higher pain tolerance when it comes to that, while also recovery capabilities as well to recover from that type of work. But if we just take a general look at kind of special snowflakes, how often do they occur? They are special snowflakes for a reason, right?
Yes.
And I don't think that the vast majority of people putting on that badge, that badge was kind of given to them. It's kind of like a copy that you've purchased from an Asian market or so for like £1, but not that badge that you're getting from, like, I don't know, the Center of Training to Failure and Recovery Capabilities.
It's like those, you walk down the market and they have like these amazing watches for like £5.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That looks just like the real thing.
Exactly.
Gucci or whatever the amazing watch brands are. Gucci's not even really a watch brand. But anyway, I know what you mean. I was going to say the simple answer here is that we're complete pussies, Pascal. And that explains everything. But yeah,
I wouldn't rule that even out.
No, I know. And the thing, well, I have a hard time thinking that when I went through, like, people would find that easy. But anyway, the real hard thing with that training as well, and particularly in that like week before end up going to deload, and you'll know this, our clients will know this, like lots of the listeners know this, it's that you're going in there with lots of fatigue. But you want to kind of beat the last week's performance. You need to perform almost at your all-time best where you're leaving everything on the table. But you've got that fatigue and like you're going through the set, and like to keep yourself kind of focused and locked in to good repetitions and not cheat. It's so much easier to start cheating. It's so much easier to cut range of motion, to swing and have momentum come in. It's such an uncomfortable pain to have good technique leading into those final reps and leaving nothing on the table, especially for legs. Like, it's just so much of you wants to bounce at the bottom of the squat or to rush a pause. And it's so rewarding when you finish a set and you're like, yeah, there was just nothing there. And it's lower body for me is way harder than upper body for that. Like, upper body is actually quite easy.
100%. And I think that this is also one of the reasons why I like to see things still as training. Training, the name, the implication, the term, is often, in our realm at least, not really thought of the way that it is being used in other sports. Training is practicing. You're trying to get better. You're trying to improve a certain skill. And that, for this, you really need to be focused and concentrated, and then try, of course, something that you haven't done maybe before. It's not just going in there and then moving things around. And yes, it may feel hard or so, but you're not getting anywhere. It's still practice. And that's why you need to actually be there mentally, but also physically speaking, and then challenge yourself every single time. And that's why it will never really get any kind of easier in the future, because you're always setting that next target in front of you.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's where people go wrong, particularly when they approach like a week one, a kind of like 3 RER, is they in their head think of that as easy, and then they just go through the motions. And I have this with clients, and I'll pull them on it, and it's probably the same for you, Pascal. You see them finish like a leg press set, and they just kind of rack it and they just walk off it like nothing happened. And I'm like, for a leg press, like you don't finish a 3 RER leg press set and just feel like nothing happened, or a leg extension set where your like quads aren't burning. You just like sit in there, and you're just like, yeah, it's cool. If they kind of had that, not that look like your face, obviously you want to keep composure and not like be super stressed and like leak energy. But if your face just looks like nothing happened, I'm always skeptical. Like, did you really push it?
But for this, people are coming to us to then have someone look over that and also challenge them and keep them accountable, right? So I don't blame anyone of actually being there, especially when they're working with us. I blame most of the people. Also there, I don't really care enough to then blame anyone. So sorry for that. It's kind of the wrong way of phrasing things. But those people who are then, of course, spending time in a gym, using that time for training, of course, instead of other things in their lives, if you do that, then of course you're expecting to get something in return. And I think that everyone would be saying, like, you should get something in return. And if you don't, then it's probably because that is the way that you approach things. And having then someone keeping you maybe accountable, helping you with it, is very welcomed critique, feedback, and criticism overall. I think that you should, once again, welcome with open arms instead of being kind of brushing it off and be like I was in the past when I told you about that one Reddit post that I read from 9 years ago, where I was saying to someone else, like, hey, believe me, I'm a powerlifter. I know how to execute a squat. And now looking back, I was full of shit, right? Don't be that guy, right?
Yeah.
Think about it and be like, all right, let me try this then instead.
I'm going to flip the script here now because I think we've spoken enough about my training, which is boring at the moment. Hands, we've got to show the listeners. I'm going to say listeners, the watchers, the hands, because Pascal just had his hands tattoo.
So funny
enough,
looking? Yeah, someone reached out to me via Instagram saying like, hey, are you going to make a post about the hands? And I'm just like, that's not me. I mean, the Instagram page, of course, when you take a look at my stories, sometimes I'm giving a little bit of insight into my private life. But other than that, I think that the Instagram profile for me personally, at least, the way that I use it is for demonstrating me as an athlete and as a coach. My hands have nothing to do with it necessarily, right? But yeah, also just really quickly, it's kind of here, the two hands.
Nice. The healing's going well.
Yeah, healing is going very, very well. So all of the skin has come off. So yesterday I was kind of feeling like a snake because everything came off like in one go. It's very odd because normally I'm used to kind of taking 2 to 3 days for everything to come off. But yesterday, everything was just falling off the entire time. So things are healing very well. The process of getting both hands tattooed at the same time was maybe not the smartest move.
You should have had two artists.
Yeah,
that would have been great.
Yeah, absolutely. It was all right. So I'm not complaining or so, right? But at the same time, you are quite limited then afterwards of what it is that you can do. The beauty is with the work that I have here, working from at home, it's not that big of a deal, but I could see this become a real issue for other people. And then I've made it, actually. I've made it to the appointment. I was not sick. I was feeling a little bit under the weather, but nothing that kept me from actually going to then the tattoo appointment. And also not in an irresponsible manner where it was just like I felt garbage and then I still went there. I felt very much all right. And the way that I did it was that I already started to take the deload a little bit earlier, just because I could feel a little bit of tingling in my throat. And I thought, let's not risk it. I waited for over, now, what was it? 9 months or so for this appointment, or 10 months even for this appointment, because it was already moved from summertime to wintertime now. I paid for then the flights, for the hotel. I couldn't have gotten it back. So those couple of extra days of earlier deload, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. But on the other hand, losing that money just because I was stubborn wouldn't have felt great. That's why I decided to actually then take it easier leading into those days. I had now a longer deload overall, of course, due to the recovery time. And yeah, it's then going to end up being 1.5 weeks of a deload. I was still managing to get 2 sessions done in that time frame. So the last session, like proper session, was last week on a Tuesday or Monday, right? And then on the weekend, I had now 2 deload sessions, and I'm going to start my next mesocycle here tomorrow again. and then I'm back at it. And I mean, those couple of additional days won't really make that much of a difference. But I can really feel that I'm craving to get back into the gym, and I'm feeling very much ready from a physiological perspective of going harder again, which is good because I felt super tired, simply because I've tried to extend the mesocycle for such a long time, even though that I was already running on low steam, basically.
Yeah, it's a position you want to be in. Like, if, again, when we have like onboarding a client, I'm always, if I can get them to deload before we go into it, like I always want them to deload at least like half a week. Because if you're coming into a new mesocycle, or you're, again, the same with dieting, if you're coming into a diet and you're already feeling like half empty, you're already really fatigued, it's just not going to go well for you. Yeah. So yeah, you want to be kind of eager to get into it. So yeah, I'm glad that all went smoothly for you, and you've got the hands, and they're all fresh now, so they like really stand out.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, in comparison to then the tattoos underneath, it kind of really pops out, as you can see, right? But at some point, of course, when then the other layer of skin is above it, hairs are then regrowing, then you were going through one summertime, then it's kind of looking normal. And the thing is that I already reached out to that guy once again. He's located in Spain, and he's coming back to Bonn another time in June. The thing is that, or in July, I think it was. The thing is though, that store, it's not just like a normal guest spot for that tattoo artist. It's kind of like a very interesting store concept. They are only having people from outside, and they are kind of organizers, managers of getting people into the studio, setting everything for them up, right? So they have like a spot to tattoo. They are taking care of the appointment for then the tattoo artist. They also do the accommodation and also the flights for then the tattoo artist. So the tattoo artist just shows up, tattoos, and goes back home again, and gets they get a provision, so a little bit of a management fee. And for then the next time, I was already like, let's do this. And then they send over the offer, and I was just like, all right, the management fee for this one time, it was all right. But if I'm supposed to pay this management fee all of the time, it's way too expensive, because they are taking 20% of a management fee, and that is of course needing to be paid on top of the fee for then the tattoo parlor or artist, right? So you can imagine that this is accumulating very quickly and getting very, very expensive in a very short time for basically nothing, because I still have to fly in, I still have to book a hotel room. If it wasn't in that city, I could see then it being all right, but I could easily just fly over to Spain, because it's the same cost for then the flights, and also I need to book a accommodation there as well. So from this perspective, it's the same cost, just a little bit longer of a flight. It's kind of like 2 hours longer of a flight, and then I'm saving, like, for then the next project, I would save like 1,500 euros, and that is the management fee. Whereas, like, all right, sorry guys, but I'm not willing to pay 1,500 bucks. I can understand you need to make money as well, but in my situation, it simply doesn't make sense.
If it was like the shop, I don't know, an hour drive away, makes complete sense for you.
Totally.
But considering you already have to take the time and make the flights and have the accommodation, it totally doesn't make sense.
And man, it was such a stressful trip overall, because so many things went wrong. On the way already to the airport, the trains weren't really getting there, so I needed to actually take a detour, and all that kind of stuff took me way longer to get there. It was freezing cold outside, and then also the next morning, because it was freezing, my plane was delayed by 1 hour at the beginning of flight to then Bonn, and then on the way back, my flight were delayed again for over 3 hours, and I was just sitting there at the airport, just wanted to get home with my hands swollen and all that kind of. It was not fun at all. So yeah, that's the worst time, is like that initial. Did he use the second skin type thing, or was it just cling film? No, they didn't, because they said that they had like what's it called again, delivery issues due to them. Those kind of things often being produced in China as well. Yeah. And that ever since COVID, they have a very hard time actually getting their hands on those kind of things, because it would have helped massively this time to get a second skin so that I don't really need to take care of the cleansing, like the hours and the day afterwards. And they didn't, which was very unfortunate.
Yeah. And like I said, part of me weirdly likes the kind of cleaning process. I think it's similar to, I don't know if anyone listening will be able to relate to this, or if you can, Pascal, but like when you're stepping on stage and you're moisturizing and exfoliating like your whole body and shaving your whole body quite regularly, like it's very, very annoying. Part of me enjoyed taking care of myself that much. It's just such a weird thing.
Guys, I even made the joke over on WhatsApp when Steve was telling me about this. I just said like Patrick Bateman.
Yeah. I knew exactly what you, and it probably is a very similar like thing to that, where it's just like, you probably get it with like your mustache where you like shaving and then taking, I don't know if you enjoy that process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In the past, when I was younger, I hated to shave it that way, like what is it called in English? Like very clean. Yeah, no, with a just clean normal razor instead of wet shaving. So in the past, I always did just like a dry shaving with kind of a machine because it was sufficient.
I see.
And I couldn't really care, right? And I hated that feeling in the past, but now I very much enjoy that feeling because it just makes you feel, I don't know, fresh, very clean.
Yeah,
and the thing is, though, and I think that every competitor can relate to this, I don't know whether female competitors can relate to this that much, but it took me over an hour to actually then shave myself for the first time when I got ready then for the shows. I think that afterwards it's easier to maintain, but then the first round of shaving yourself after years of not having shaved yourself all over, it just takes a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. Actually, I've seen quite a few people get like laser removal, like laser hair removal. I have a client actually, he has almost his whole body done, in fact, actually. Not for, he just liked that anyway, but I could see the appeal if you're competing very regularly. I don't know, but it's I don't know.
Is it permanent?
I think it's meant to be, yeah. It takes quite a lot of sessions though. So you have to go to like a clinic and it's a whole thing.
I don't know how I feel about it because I do remember the time, that's how old I am, guys, the time when females always kind of wanted to have thin eyebrows and all that kind of stuff, right? And so many got to the point where they didn't really have any kind of eyebrow hair growth anymore. And now so many people, like, what is it now, 2 or 3 years ago, it became very trendy to have like bushy eyebrows.
Yeah.
And so many females regretted that they did it to remove those eyebrows. And then they went through something like also artificial kind of tattooing even eyebrows.
Yeah.
And also just kind of replacement. Whereas like, if you really want, do you really want to go down that road of like permanently remove all of the body hair? You never know. You never know what you want in the future, you know?
Yeah, I guess
says the guy who's doing tattoos. I mean,
I was just going to say it's a bit similar to tattoos in that way. Like you could regret that. That's why like piercings are great because you can get a piercing and then they heal. And then not that I have any piercings, but some moderate piercings just heal back. So you're all right. I felt like this episode, Pascal, because it's coming out. Will this come out just before Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be the episode before Christmas. Then the one after that will be the one just after. So I thought this would be a good one to like, don't know, talk about Christmas a little bit. I know for both of us, it's not like a big event.
Steve, can I start off with one thing? Because that was something that I actually wanted to talk about as well. And that is nutrition while traveling. And it became once again so apparent to me. So often I'm traveling like for kind of business trips or shorter trips, right? Where I then, I don't know, for example, London, where I'm out of my typical environment. And of course, I had it in the past as well that I went through a lot of athletes through something like an event of traveling on holidays with a lot of my athletes who were then saying and reporting that it was harder for them to track. And I can absolutely understand where this is coming from. But I found myself that it isn't really any significantly harder to keep track of my macros while I'm gone as it is at home. And this is once again due to just a little bit of pre-planning and a little bit of awareness and also willingness to do just you, and instead of caring about your environment. To further elaborate on this, so what I did, and this is basically something that I've started doing ever since, like, I don't know, a couple of years ago, whenever I was then traveling, I'm actually taking a bigger Tupperware box with me with a spoon. This way, I can easily then also have something like a Greek yogurt, a quark with some berries, and so I still have a box where I then can actually put everything in. I could also use that box for then kind of a salad, getting some chicken breasts and then putting everything into the box. It's a little bit harder, of course, with a spoon, but often you just make it done, right? And what I was doing is basically, on the day of the tattoo, I knew that I'm going to be in that store for a long time. So what I did was actually I bought myself some kind of that mousse, that, you know, that protein mousse. Absolutely amazing. So this also then for later on, got some fruit with some quark. So there we had already 80 grams of protein just with those two things alone, right? And I was sitting then there while I was taking a break, and I was just like putting the pack of quark in my Tupperware, putting the berries on top, and ate. While, of course, other people were around me looking a little bit, gave me some funny looks, as always, right? But I don't care, because it's just what I need and want in that situation. And it's easy. It's easy. You still have full control over everything. And then for dinner time, I was actually then looking already around while I was sitting there at my tattoo artist. What is it that I could do? What is it that could make it a little bit easier for me to keep on track? And then I found this place, a poke bowl, where they had like a nutritional label. Of course, it wasn't probably 100%, but it gave me a good understanding of, yeah, this could be in that rough ballpark, right? And then next morning, once again, what I did was I knew that I needed to go to the airport quite early. So what I did was I went to Lidl, bought myself once again a quark with some berries, and then had it at the airport, right? It looks weird, of course, when you're sitting there with that big bowl of kind of quark, but people will give you for 5 seconds a look, will then maybe think their part for those 5 seconds, and then in 30 seconds they have forgotten about you again. So for one, you don't really need to think about what other people think about you. Secondary, in our Western world and society, we probably nearly always have access to a supermarket where we can then find things with a nutritional label on. And then it's about 3, being a little bit prepared. And that little bit of preparedness is having a Tupperware box with me with a spoon, and then being able to just like eat whenever I could, and also what I wanted in that given situation.
I think it's actually really interesting hearing you talk through that. I wonder if you feel this way or not, but I think I've got to the point with these sort of things where I don't even kind of think about other people thinking that I look weird doing something. I'll give you an example, because I had a somewhat not the same situation as you, but obviously I traveled not long ago, and I completely agree with you. It just takes a bit of foresight with these things, like I just packed some protein sachets in my bag. It's like, yeah, I don't have to pack a whole tub of protein, and I can have that before I go. I know you've already mapped out, okay, there's a little supermarket here. They're going to have, I don't know, for me, it's like a liter of smoothie and like a liter of chocolate milk or something that I just need to get in. But I've got it prepared. And it's like you said, but this weekend, we're going out for lunch with my parents, and we're going to a vegan place. And and then we're hanging out afterwards. I didn't know how long it was going to take or anything like that. And it was a bit longer than I thought, but we were in St. Pancras, and there was a M&S, and I just bought 2 pints of skim milk, and I just drank 2 pints of skim milk on the way home, because I was like, it's going to take an hour for us to get home. I haven't had any protein for like 4 hours. I need to get some calories in. And I didn't even, like, it probably looked weird for a guy to be like downing a 2 pint like skim milk container. But I was like, I didn't even think about it. I'm just like, I need to do this. And you're completely right in that. There's so many, especially in Europe now, and like London is a great example, but there's just a little supermarket everywhere. There is no excuse. Every single one of those has milk or dairy, has protein shakes, has protein bars most of the time. So
even those kind of small Tesco boxes of chicken breast, where it's like 150 grams or so of chicken breast. Perfect, man. You're getting then 30 grams, sometimes even 40 grams of protein in one go for 150 kcals. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's not
even
a Michelin star meal, but it gets the job done for that given moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be any kind of fancy or so.
And even you mentioned the poke bowl. There's like Subway. There are like various locations like that, like Chipotle or something like this, where it's quick, it's easy. You kind of know what you're getting. So when even if you're dieting, the numbers are close enough. You know what you're kind of getting, that it's going to fit what you need it to. And you don't need to just go, fuck it. I don't know. I don't know what you would do in this situation. I think the hardest thing for other individuals sometimes is when they aren't as much in control. So I don't know if you're with family or with friends and maybe the nutrition is taken out of your hands a little bit. Maybe you have to turn down certain foods. You have to bring your own food with you sometimes. And then it's trying to assess when that's appropriate for you and your goals at a certain time, and when maybe you don't need to be as anal and worry about that as much. And that's just going to be unique to the individual at that certain time.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I can definitely see that. So whenever I'm out with my family, I still make it a habit of getting some protein in. Either it is then right before it, or I pre-plan or prepare myself with a protein bar, just take it with me. If I really know, like, okay, there's not going to be anything anywhere around, and we are going to be on the road for a uncertain amount of time, let me just get something with me, just in case. It's kind of like a small insurance, you know?
Yeah.
And Katie already knows me that well, that when we're then going on our D days, so our date days, that sometimes when we were in a restaurant and there was simply very much little protein in then the meals, then it could be that we're then jumping straight into kind of a small supermarket. Let me just grab one of those kind of packets of chicken breast, and then I'm chucking kind of, then we're walking and I'm chewing that chicken breast. It's maybe not the most, so it sounds very much odd, but if your partner knows you to that extent, or should know you that well, shouldn't be disgusted by something like this also, right? And of course, it brings us then basically then to the Christmas period, where then you are in an environment where it's harder than to keep track of things. It's harder than to continue just doing you and sticking with your habits, and you don't have to. I always like to say, to earn your flexibility, you have 365 days out of the year. You have, let's say, 4 meals per day, 28 days per month or so, just as a rough 28 meals per week. And then let's say you have like 30 days in a month or so. You have plenty of meals where you can be 100% on point. If you do it throughout the entire year, holiday periods, Christmas, one dinner or one night out shouldn't really stress you out too much, especially considering that Thanksgiving or something like Christmas period, how much are you eating out? It's perhaps even just like this dinner time. I don't think that all of you guys, you're being served like from morning to night time without having any say in what it is that you are eating, right? There will probably be some meals. Also, you need to take into consideration that you're still supposed to eat, and you're basically now exchanging a very controlled meal with a less controlled meal. So that means you just need to calculate the difference between those meals. So if you know that normally during dinner I have like 600 calories, and this time, let me try to aim to be somewhere around 600 calories. If you're then going slightly above it, totally fine as well, because then it equates to one meal, maybe being off by 200 calories, not a big deal, right? The only problem is on those days when people are completely losing their shit, not having any kind of self-control, and also this in combination with not having done their due diligence for the remainder of the year.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
Yeah, I think that's so well said, where in a sense, it's like when you can be in control, be in control. When you can't, don't then stress about it and just do your best under those given circumstances. And it's like you said there, the issue is when people do treat Christmas, and I think we have a very kind of, I don't know, it's not like food is fuel, but more of that way of thinking versus food is like, I don't know, like there's something super special about the fact you eat certain things on Christmas Day, and it's a day where food is a huge part of it, and we'd be completely wrong to say that it isn't. It absolutely is, and for some people, like, it's what makes the day. But then I think it's just a realization that if you have goals of like fat loss or minimum fat gain during that period of time, know that there's a cost to really going all out and enjoying it. And maybe for you it's worth it, but you have to just realize that if you feel shitty the next days, was it worth it? Because you should be like, oh no, like I enjoyed all that dessert and stuff. Yeah, I was maybe gained a couple of pounds over this period, but it was worth the enjoyment of switching off and being with loved ones and whatever. And I can see that for some people completely.
Totally. Absolutely. No, and you can even pre-plan for those kind of things if you know in advance.
Yeah.
Or if you know yourself well enough to know, all right, I'm that person. I want to actually have a little bit more flexibility. I want to have more to eat. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't come running home again, complaining about having gained a shit ton of weight, not knowing how that happened. All of a sudden, I've gained so much weight, and I don't know why, but I binged while sitting there with my family. Right? If you know, and you should be aware of that yourself, right? Everyone kind of to some extent should. Of course, sometimes we are discovering things about ourselves that we weren't aware of beforehand. But most of the time, we should have a fairly good understanding of what type of person we are and how we are dealing with certain nutritional situations or social obligations, of whether we are that type of person who want to make it maybe even right for other people, who want to give them more comfort. And by that, we are often the type of person that don't really deny or say no to certain offerings. And that is totally fine. But if you know that in advance, then you can use so many other strategies of like saving a couple of macros the week prior to that. Doesn't need to be a lot, maybe 100 or 200 calories per day. You can then, alongside that, have something like an intermittent fasting approach. All of that, though, needs to be said that you also there need to know yourself, right? If you know that when you're typically saving a couple of macros at the beginning of the day and it leaves you being overly hungry by the end of the day, maybe it's also not the best approach. This is where then knowing yourself becomes super important. And also at times having an inner dialogue and making a compromise with yourself, maybe setting some rules, setting some limitations for yourself, of like, you don't have to even communicate that to anyone else around you. It can be things such as, I have the one rule to rule them all, where it's like you are eating one plate with a normal portion size, you have one dessert and one drink. This way, no one else around you will give you a weird eye or so, or weird look, because it's still, you're participating, you are eating what the other people are eating, right? And then that's fine, right? Then you probably end up with maybe 1,000 calories, maybe 1,200 calories, but you kept it in a tighter range instead of letting it slip and just like go absolutely manic over that kind of day and kind of losing control, because losing control often only happens when we don't have a structure, we don't have a plan, and also we don't have a plan B. If then plan A, or the structure that we set for ourselves, can't be adhered to, right? So if you have those things in place, knowing yourself, having plan B, having somewhat of a structure, having some kind of tools and alternatives, how to go about it, there is no reason, in my opinion, to first and foremost stress out about it, not having a flexible approach and a good time, and also completely deviating from what it is that you're normally doing. Because in the end, it's just like a meal with other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you think about Christmas, hopefully shouldn't be like just about the food. It should be about like being surrounded by other people. And yeah, it can be part about the food because there's probably some things that you don't normally eat or normally let yourself have necessarily because it's not the most goal-driven choices. But I think your point of like people pleasing, because I've definitely am somewhat that person who I sometimes will just do things because I know it's going to make the other person kind of happy or not mad. And in a way, I'm really just pleasing myself because I'm worried about that confrontation. And I think what's really helped me through my bodybuilding kind of lifestyle and making it work for me is like setting boundaries for myself. And like you said, like you have that rule, one rule to rule them all, and just having some limitations. So it might be that you actually don't want to drink alcohol. If drinking alcohol, a lot of the listeners, I think probably that alcohol is just not for them. But on Christmas Day, they're like, oh, I've got to have the champagne or whatever. It's like, okay, for me, I will have the Bucks Fizz or whatever in the morning because I know Charlotte really appreciates it when I have the Bucks Fizz in the morning and being part of the family there with the drink and whatever. Like they really enjoy that I'm part of that. So cool, Bucks Fizz, something I can work with. It's nothing too terrible. But it doesn't mean that I have to have like the next pint with the dad and have like the wine at dinner. Like I can just, no, like I've done my bit that I was comfortable and like that's my boundary. No more for me. So I think it's the same with like, even at work, like when people come, like at this time of year, people are going to probably be giving people in the office like treats and what have you. I think just kind of like being really grateful that they're offering you it, but being like, I'm good now. Like I'm fine. Like it's all like I'm all right. I don't need it. And I think sometimes, and I have this thought. I'm like, oh, but that might make them feel bad. But they have they thought whether offering you it like that is going to make you feel uncomfortable? Probably not. So ultimately, they've put themselves in that position to feel uncomfortable or bad about being turned down. So you shouldn't feel bad about how you make other people feel in those sort of situations because they've put you in that situation in the first place. So yeah, I think it's just taking ownership for your actions and emotions sometimes, and in some ways protecting yourself and your values to some extent. You've definitely taught me that, Pascal, because I definitely was a little bit a pushover in some ways, just in life in general. I think it's helped me develop as a person to be like, no, that won't make anyone feel good if I like they make me have something I didn't want to eat. I feel bad because they've made me do that. Now I have a dislike to them. It's not helping anyone out in this situation. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's very well put, honestly, because I think people are forgetting about that. They only see it from one perspective of like, from their inner perspective, I can make them unhappy or so. But sometimes you just need to actually then try to put yourself in their shoes and also reflect upon it and be like, okay, actually, they are responsible for their own happiness if they make their happiness dependent on whether I take an offer or not, you know? And no, absolutely. In the end, I always like to say that that those kind of get-togethers are never necessarily about food. It's not that you guys, hopefully, you guys sit together and all you do is just eat without speaking with another, without having a good time. And then you leave the table and it's just like, oh, man, finally, that shitty food, the shitty company, etc., etc. No, probably it's about getting together. The food is just a byproduct, right? That doesn't dictate of whether you have a good time and other people have a good time or not. It's kind of a byproduct to kind of freshen things up and to have a little bit of a reason of getting together maybe at the dinner table. But this isn't the make or break thing that if you're then saying no to the second drink or so, that everyone will hate you. That's probably not going to happen. And I think that everyone is aware of that, but we may forget this in then the given moment. Also, when it then comes to kind of going a little bit off track with the macros or putting yourself in a scenario that you can't really 100% track, I think not so many, but some people have too much of a positive connotation with that they just want to reward themselves. They just want to relax for a moment. And that immediately puts a negative spin of what it is that you're normally doing, of your entire endeavor around fitness and getting healthy and all that kind of stuff. If you put it that way, if you phrase it that way, you end up admitting that it's actually a burden for you and your life, of what it is that you are trying to do on a daily basis, of your entire journey around bodybuilding, getting fit, looking better, and all that kind of stuff, that it's a burden for you and that you don't really enjoy it. If you need a break from that with those holidays, then I think it's just a testament. And I also think that this is something that many people then should think about if they really feel that way. If you need a break from this, if you need a holiday, so to speak, then that means that you're doing probably something that is just like too much of a burden on a daily basis for you. Because for me personally, I rather like to eat the way that I do and have control over the things than not so. And for me, I don't need breaks. And this is also often reflected in kind of sometimes the post-show period. Some people just need a little bit of a detachment. I know this. But for me personally, when we were competing together, Steve, I know both you and I, we were just like getting back home. And while we were sitting in the car, eating the same stuff that we are normally eating. Wasn't about kind of a celebratory meal and stuff like this, right? And the same sometimes goes for those holidays where then people are going into the holidays saying like, oh, you know what, I just need a break from things. And often to me, what this means is, Pascal, I want to let you know in advance, I'm going completely bonkers here. I'm going to eat all of the food that is inside. And then next week, I'm going to report back to you that I overate and feel guilty about this. Yeah. This is what it often is. And it's kind of already, you have the ability to look in the future because you've seen that so often already.
I think it comes back to that not being on or off, just like the dimmer switch. We're more on or less on. So like in the post-show period, like when we're in prep and when I hadn't finished my season, I was as bright as possibly could be. I was tracking every little thing basically, including sodium, salt content, fluids on a daily basis. Post-show though, I remove those two things absolutely immediately and I get way more dim because that's appropriate for that period of time. And then I tighten it back up as I'm kind of recovering. And throughout my off season, I'm at a level of brightness that's sustainable for me so that when I do kind of, again, dim it a little bit for maybe Christmas or a holiday, it's not that I'm off. Because like you said, if you're doing this like swing roundabouts where you're on or off, that's where it's like, if you have to be off when you're on holiday completely, it's because what you're ever doing is you're too far on and you need to find a better kind of lighting setting or whatever it is for you for that to be sustainable. Because I see it the same with you, Pascal, where it almost is, it's a sad to see people use it as an excuse just to go off the rails. It's like, okay, whatever you were doing before is unsustainable. And it's not that, like, for example, a mini cut, you wouldn't want to eat in a mini cut style year round. That is an unsustainable on purpose diet. But the long-term approach of your eating is meant to be sustainable. It's meant to be a lifestyle. And we always say this, like bodybuilding and what we do should complement your lifestyle. It shouldn't take over. And if, like you said, if you're needing to use situations like Christmas or birthdays or holidays as a reason to be like, oh my gosh, because it's just too overwhelming the rest of the year, that's a bit of a red flag that your nutrition, you're not got a really healthy relationship with your nutrition and something there needs to be modified.
No, absolutely. In regards to training, I'm also aware that some gyms, they may not have opened during that time frame. Totally all right. If you know that in advance, then also they are pre-planned for it. If you then have 3 days of a rest, hey, not really a big deal, honestly, and then you just get back on it. And if that's not the case, then feel free to actually use that additional time maybe that you have to go into the gym with the additional food that you've been eating to just like hammer a couple of good sessions out, even if you're outside of your typical environment. If you're then, I don't know, at your parents' place, for example, and you need to train at a different gym, that's totally all right. Don't go off by the load on the machines, but more so still work in your relative intensity range alongside then with the repetition range. And then probably you're still able to induce relatively the same stimulus as you do in your normal typical environment. Easy as that.
We're quite, actually, no, I don't know if we are fortunate. I was going to say I'm quite fortunate. I'm not really. Let me explain. So Christmas is on a Sunday. I think a lot of people have a rest day on a Sunday, and that also means New Year's Day is on a Sunday. And these are the 2 days gyms are normally shut. So I think a lot of people, I don't think you included though, Pascal, have rest days on Sundays.
No,
so
I start my training week normally on a Friday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because I just like having a the feeling that I have a little bit more time, because normally in the week I want to be at home at around 7 because it's kind of breakfast time with me and my family, and after that they are leaving, and that's why I always want to be there by that time.
Yeah,
and on the weekend I have plenty of time because the gyms first open at around 9. At least the gym that I'm working out at right now.
Yeah, and it's like you said, like match your sets, rep range, RAR targets, and find exercises or machines that replicate what you'd normally be doing. And you're totally fine. And if you, like you said, you're only going to miss probably a few days of training, just kind of come back to your sessions when you can. You're going to be a bit more recovered, just like you are with your kind of tattoo recovery. You're going to be a bit more recovered. It's not the end of the world to kind of have a few days. The only thing I would say in addition to that is, again, like when I'm at Charlotte's, I'm going to have to do the same thing because I train at a different gym down there, but they know I'm a gym freak or whatever they want to, like, they know I'm a bodybuilder. They know I'm going to go to that gym, and like old me probably would have been like, oh no, when I'm down there, like I can't go to the gym because I always have to be present. I have to like be with everyone. But I know Charlotte sleeps in the morning, and her mum and dad, like they might have wanted me to be with them for that period of time, maybe initially, but they're totally cool. They know I've got my thing. They probably respect me for it in some way, where I'm like, they're like, Steve always goes to the fucking gym. It's Christmas, he's still going to the gym, like he's this guy. But like that's part of who we are. And I think sometimes, again, if everyone's after Christmas dinner or whatever, stuffed, and they're all like sleeping, snoozing, watching a film or anything, and you're like, man, I really normally get a lot more steps than this. I feel a bit like uncomfortable just sat here. Like it's not the end. Like you're not going and like purging the food you've just binged on. That's not what we're talking about. We're trying to find a more middle ground, which is what we're talking about kind of during this conversation. You just want to go and get out some steps because it makes you feel good. You feel better for it. Go do that. No one's going to judge you. No one's really thinking about it. You can take an hour to go listen to this podcast, and like switch off and take some time to yourself. Yeah,
and especially during that time, you could even ask if other people want to join you.
Exactly.
I mean it. Especially going out on the walk, I have the feeling that around that time, at least that's the thing with Katie's family, everyone seems to be a little bit more relaxed. Everyone has a little bit more time at their disposal. And then sometimes you can just like suggest, hey, shouldn't we go out on a walk? And then you just like slender around the neighborhood or so. Totally fine. And if that's something that you don't like to do or so, totally fine as well. But this way, you include other people, and you're not that hermit who gives kind of the feel and the vibes that you don't really want to be there, because I have to admit it, that's sometimes me, but I've also learned when that is actually happening. When I have like projects that I'm working on, I have a very hard time actually then focusing on something else, and then I'd rather stay at home, continue working on that, because otherwise my mind would still be on that project and be like, sorry guys, I'm not saying this, but Katie feels that. She knows that. She can see it in my eyes, and she can just sense it, right? And then she also even said, Pascal, then I rather want you to stay at home and do the work rather than being there and not really be present. And that's all right.
Yeah, no, you're right with those walks. Absolutely. Like invite other people with you, or even like to the gym. If like, I don't know, some of your, I don't know who family are there, but they can come with you if they want or whatever. Yeah. I personally wouldn't really want to do that with people, but I kind of want to get that in. Yeah. But everyone has their own little things. Like, again, like with Charlotte, she's sleeping in, like she's not going to sleep in. That makes her feel good. But that shouldn't be any more acceptable than me going to the gym in the morning and doing that whilst she's sleeping in. It's like, just because I'm up doesn't mean I need to be there for you all the time.
Just to give you a little bit of a different spin on things, and for the listeners, what type of people we are, Steve. And there may be some listeners who can relate to that, and some people can't relate to it, but would like to do it and never really wanted to because they felt guilty about it. So as you know, Katie and I, we have our D-days. Now, because of the kids, we can't really do them that often anymore. In the past, it was always every second weekend. Now it's just like, I don't know, twice or 3 times per year, unfortunately. But now, right before Christmas here on this Saturday, once you've listened to this episode, it was already done. We are having another D-day. what it is that we like to do, our couple of activities, and then also booking what it is that we started doing is kind of booking a hotel room in Berlin, always different hotel rooms, because it's just kind of fun, right? Just discovering the city kind of differently and not having to ride back home. And because my training blog is now starting again, and we were staying in the midst of the city, I was just thinking like, hey, maybe there's a McFit, so a gym around the corner that I can then go to on Sunday morning, because Katie is someone who would like to sleep in, but often can't because of the kids. They are waking her up. But the last time that we had our D-Day, she was actually then asleep, and I was just awake very early, and I went out on a walk and just walked around the block, right? And when I came home, she was awake. And now I'm going to do it like this. I even told her, hey, when we're doing our D-Day, next morning, I will head to the gym at, 5 or 6 in the morning while you're still asleep. And then I will come back and we have a kind of breakfast together and all that kind of stuff.
It's a good example because Charlotte wants to go away for New Year's, probably something similar. We won't go into London. We'll probably try and go further out. Actually, that's the issue. But as she said that, I was like, man, I would like to find a gym. And it isn't, same with you, it isn't that I feel guilty to miss a session. It's because I want to. It's because I want to do my training session because it's something I really enjoy and I don't want to miss it. That's why. And I think sometimes because it's, I guess, the general perception of exercise and going to the gym, it's almost seen as something that people do because they feel guilty or bad and they just can't relax or whatever. Where it's actually like, I don't know, it's like someone who really loves playing PlayStation games, I don't know, and they want to go play on their PlayStation game in the morning, but we're going out and finding a gym. It's like our version of that. So I completely relate to you on that. I think a large number of our listeners will. Some of them won't. They'll be like completely opposite. They want to relax or whatever. Yeah, and just switch off. But if you're trying to find excuses to get out of training or to get out of sticking onto your nutritional plan, I can maybe like serious bodybuilding isn't for you, and maybe you are that's always going to hold that person back a little bit. I can't help but think because the dedication you need to be able to be extremely muscular or extremely lean means that you probably need to enjoy the process to a large extent.
And it would be absolutely all right as well to admit it to yourself if you don't really enjoy the process that much, because I still think that a lot of people can look still very, very good overall and don't have to go to those lengths when it comes to training and nutrition, taking care of certain things, especially when it has a negative impact on their overall quality of life. Yes. I think then it's probably not for you, and that should be absolutely all right. And it's kind of weird that when it comes to kind of lifting and nutrition, that many people don't admit it there, but are very easy to admit it on other kind of hobbies and things. I was like, I don't know, if you don't enjoy rowing, I don't know why rowing, but if you don't enjoy rowing, you can actually maybe do biking or running instead. There's so many other things, and maybe you enjoy those kind of things but hate rowing, right? So why would you then continue rowing? It doesn't really make any kind of sense.
Yeah, I think if, again, like, you don't have to love it to the extent we love it, but don't try and force, like, and that's what you're kind of saying there, is don't force yourself to train 6 days a week if you really don't enjoy it. You're going to get the vast majority of the benefits from 3 days a week. Like, just pull it back. You'll probably get a weight off your shoulders. And
it also doesn't mean that you're less dedicated than other people. I think it's very important to point this out. Only because someone is training like 6 days per week doesn't mean that he's necessarily way more dedicated, way more motivated, or anything alike. Maybe it just fits their lifestyle a little bit better, or anything alike. Or maybe they are just like stupid and think that they have to do it, when in reality they don't. And maybe they are seeing then less progress overall than you, who's the person who's then only doing things 3 times, 4 times per week, because that's all you can do, mentally speaking, and it gives you the most amount of joy. And this allows you then also to push yourself the hardest as well, right? So I think you don't need to prove anything to anyone else other than yourself.
Yeah, and it kind of comes back to that lifestyle, sustainability. What you should be doing with your training nutrition should complement your lifestyle overall. So if you are, like, again, on Christmas Day, trying to stick to your nutritional plan strictly because you feel guilty if you don't, or like, you should want to kind of stick to it. And if you don't want to stick to it, then be a bit looser. Like just try and find that kind of middle ground for you and what seems appropriate for yourself. And this is what we'll be doing with our clients, is like talking them through the different situations. And probably you and me, Pascal, will know the person well enough to be like, we should probably do this rather than this, because I just don't see that going the right way. There'll be some people that need to chill out a little bit. There'll be some people that need to you need to encourage them to not go off the handle, and people in between. So I think you just have to know yourself. It's like you said, know yourself. If you end up kind of saving hundreds of calories through the week and that leads you binging on Christmas Day, it's probably not a good idea. Oh. But maybe you're the person that suits wildly perfectly for, and that just allows you to stick to your goals. So ultimately enjoy the day. That's what we should come back to.
Totally. So blab on for like 30 minutes, and in the end it's just like enjoy the day, but not in the sense of like justifying bad behavior or so, enjoying, but being what I always revert back to, being an adult, whatever this means actually.
Yeah, and I hope people do have a fantastic Christmas period. I'm going to be taking that 1 week off client check-ins. So that gives me just a bit more freedom and to be present with Charlotte's family, who we barely see. So that should be fun. Have you got anything? Are you with Katie's family for the Christmas Day? Or are you doing
Yes, exactly. And I'm also very much looking forward to this year, simply because last year was very much impacted by my recovery from the surgery, where I had some complications in the post-recovery or post-surgery period, and also surgery period itself, with all of the blood that was actually then accumulating here on the side, where I then actually went to the hospital on the 24th, which is when here in Germany we are celebrating Christmas evening and dinner. So it wasn't really the Christmas that we usually have, and that's why I'm very much looking forward to this year. Once again, I'm always cooking the entire day. I then prepare everything for kind of a photo, a Christmas family photo, just the four of us, kind of in a more fancier way. And I'm just very much looking forward to that, simply because last year wasn't really a good Christmas, so to speak. Well, not the normal Christmas, basically.
Yeah. I was actually not for the same reasons. We were not allowed to see family last year, so
true. It'll
be nice to be with Charlotte's family. Although I'm not looking forward to the dog situation. It's never fun.
Absolutely. Cool. Then, guys, I wish you also a very, very lovely Christmas time. I hope some of the things that we said here were helpful for you. You now have a couple of strategies. As always, if you don't, right, you can always leave a comment in the comment section below if you need help, or if it's a little bit too intimate or so, you can reach out to us or even jump on a call with us as well. Head over to revivestronger.com/online coaching, and then we're setting up a call. Maybe before Christmas will be a little bit of a tougher one, but perhaps if it's very urgent or so, we can even make this happen. So guys, as always, thank you very much for also engaging the people that engaged last week and saying you're here, especially like people such as Patrick, my man.
I saw Patrick.
It's great to see that you're still around. The OGs still around listening, and also the newcomers as well. So leave a like, leave a subscribe, and show some love in the comment section. I guess that's it for this week, and I guess I'll speak to you next week.
Cheers, guys.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.